Welcome back, everybody, to the live webinar here at weBINAr. Today is Yom Hazikoron, when millions of Jews around the world stand together to remember the sacrifices of our brave soldiers who literally put their life aside and gave up their life to protect and defend our holy land, the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael. These people are of the highest caliber, what we call in Judaism Kedoshim, holy people who sanctified their life, who gave up their life for the sake of God, and for the sake of the Jewish people, and for the sake of the Jewish land. So I thought that in their honor to dedicate this webinar to examine the topic of how Judaism looks at remembering someone who has passed away in general, not specifically connected to this day, but the general idea of remembering someone who has passed away. What is the concept of that? What is the meaning of it? And what is the purpose of it? And let this be in their memory. Generally speaking, people look at the concept of remembering a loved one who has passed away, that it is actually for the purpose of the people who have remained behind, for the purpose of the mourner, for the one who is still living. For example, why do we mourn? Why do we sit what's called sitting Shiva? Why do we sit for 7 days for someone who has passed away? Someone can think that the purpose of that is actually for the people who are left alive. There are great psychological benefits of, instead of going straight back into the world after losing a loved one spends 7 consecutive days just thinking about the deceased, just thinking about what they have lost, and that then eases them back into regular routine. There is great psychological benefit to that. One can think similarly that the concept of a yahrzeit, which means marking the anniversary of someone passing away on a yearly basis, is also for those who are left behind, in order to keep the memory of that person who has passed away alive. Every year, the family gathers together and remembers the one who is no longer with us. The truth is, however, that although that is all true, that there are great benefits for the living in the concept of mourning and remembering the ones who have passed away, but the truth is that it's much deeper than that. That all of these things, the concept of sitting Shiva, mourning, all the laws that have to do with that, as we'll get into some of them soon, are actually beneficial for the soul of the deceased. And in fact, on the contrary, it works the other way around. Because it is beneficial for the soul of the deceased, that then achieves that down here, the people which are connected to that soul should feel a peace of mind and some sort of comfort as a result of all these things, specifically because all these things have caused peace and elevation to the soul above. So to understand this, one needs to have a proper perspective on the eternity of life. One of the foundations of Judaism is that a person's life does not end when they pass away. On the contrary, when a person passes away, their soul is freed from their physical body and is able to ascend to great spiritual heights in the spiritual world above. This is, of course, not to minimize the feeling of pain and loss when losing a loved one, because of course we live down here in this physical world, and those spiritual worlds are not something that we can really connect to in a real tangible way. So therefore, of course, we feel pain and sadness. But the truth is, for the soul, it is actually an elevation, that the soul is elevated to a higher spiritual plane. Once we understand that concept, we can now understand that what we do down here actually affects the soul of the deceased. Where we live in this physical world, this is called the world of action. Hayoim la'asoisam. Today is the day of action. U'lemachar, and tomorrow, lekabel scharam, we receive the reward. In other words, when we live today, here and now in this physical world, this is where we have the ability to do good deeds, to act, to achieve greatness. And when one passes away, when one receives their reward by being elevated to spiritual world and being connected to a high level of spirituality. So therefore, once the soul leaves the body and is no longer able to do any more action on its own, it relies on the family, on the people which are connected to that soul, to do certain actions, to do things in their merit, and that in turn causes a great elevation and pleasure to the soul above. So let's discuss a couple of things that has become the custom to do to remember someone that has passed away. The most famous of them, of course, is the Kaddish. Starting with the words Yiskadal v'Yiskadash May Rabba, which means may God's great name be praised. What is the origin of this prayer? So the first verse is based on a verse in Yecheskel, in the book of Yecheskel. The primary verse, so to speak, the middle one, where everyone says together, Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach, where that God's holy name, great name, should be blessed. That is also based, it's similar to a couple of verses in Tanakh. It means that God's name should be blessed forever and ever. This, over the generations, talking thousands of years, has become a common response in prayer. In other words, when praying publicly, this has become a sort of, this line of may God's name be blessed forever and ever, was sort of a chant and an answer when praying. The earliest time that we find such an expression is actually Yaakov Avinu, Jacob our forefather. Right before he passed away, it says that he wanted to reveal to his sons the time of the final redemption, and suddenly he forgot it. So he was worried maybe the reason why this piece of information was taken away from him is because one of his sons or a few of his sons have moved away from the path of God from which he educated them. So he asked his children, are you all with me in your heart? Do we all believe the same thing? And they called out the famous phrase, Shema Yisrael, listen, O Israel, because Israel is also Yaakov Avinu's name. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, God is one. In other words, we all believe in the same God. And Yaakov answered them, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay Lo'olam Va'ed, which has a very similar meaning to Yehei Shmei Rabba, which means that God's name and kingship should be blessed forever and ever. So it became a form of prayer, that line. When did the Kaddish become associated with someone passing away and being said by a son or descendant of somebody who has passed away? So we don't exactly know when that happened, but the earliest source that we find such a thing is in Tanit Ve'Eliyahu, about a story about the great sage Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who lived at the end of the Second Temple era. So we're talking about close to 2,000 years ago. And he relates the following story. He says that once I was walking on the way, and I found a man collecting wood. I'm loosely translating this based upon a translation from Chabad.org. I spoke to him, but he would not say a word back to me. Only later, he came to me and said, Rabbi, I am dead, not alive. I replied, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai replied, so if you are dead, why do you need all that wood? So he said, Rabbi, listen to me and I'll explain. So he says, when I was alive, me and my friend committed a lot of sins. So when we came to the world of truth, they sentenced us to burning. I collect wood and I burn my friend, and he collects wood and he burns me. Now obviously this doesn't mean on a literal level, physical fire, but there is a concept of punishment in the afterlife as well. So I asked him, did they tell you how long your sentence is? How long is this going to go on for? This is a terrible, terrible punishment. To which he replied, when I came here, in other words, when I passed away, my wife was expecting a baby. So I am asking you, please take care of him from the time that he is born until he is 5 years old. Take him to school to learn to read and pray. For at the time that he will say, blessed is God who is blessed, they will raise me from the judgment of Gehenna. In other words, they will stop the punishment. And here we see that when a person's children say this concept of blessed be is God, which is in our form, the way we say it is in the Kaddish, that then elevates the soul from whatever punishment they're going for, or even if the person is not being punished, if they're on a very high level of spirituality already, they can always, since God is infinite, you can always be elevated to higher levels. And over the ages, this became a universal custom that everybody, after a person passes away, somebody says Kaddish for that soul, and that again elevates the soul. Another concept, another custom, is to learn Mishnayos from the Mishnah in memory of the deceased. This is done generally during the first year after a person passes away, or on the yahrzeit, the day that the person passes away, the anniversary of that person's death. The reason for this custom is a famous reason that the word Mishnah has the same letters as the word Neshama, which means soul. Another custom is to light candles. Some people have a custom that the entire first year after their parents have passed away, they light a candle, and that candle remains burning the entire year. Obviously, to light a candle, to keep a candle burning the entire year. And the reason for this custom is because a person's soul is compared to a candle. Neir Hashem Nishmat Adam, that a person's soul is like a godly candle within them. Another custom is that when it comes the time of the yard site, to make a bracha, to eat some food and make a blessing in their honor. Again, all of these things are to cause a great elevation to the soul. So what we see from all of this, and there are many more customs, but we'll stop with this, but what we see from all of this is that all of these things are not just for the sake of the mourner. They're also, obviously they cause great comfort, but they're not only for that, for his or her sake, they're also and primarily to elevate the soul of the person who has already passed away, and that then in turn generates great blessing and comfort to those who the deceased had left behind. May God help that Mashiach should come and we will be reunited physically with all of our loved ones that have passed away, including and first and foremost, those who have given up their life for the sake of the God of Israel, for the sake of the Jewish people, the people of Israel, and for the sake of the land of Israel. Have a great day.